Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Log Show here on YouTube. I am your host, Logan, aka Log, and I can't wait to get into what has happened in the past week. As you see, the shirt I'm wearing today is a Yankee shirt. I can't wait to go on the rant of how mad I am at this New York Yankees team and what had transpired over the past week. I was so excited going into the Boston series, and so much went wrong. I'll talk about all of that. Not only will I talk about that, NFL preseason is finally over, so we have all of that coming up. I have what I'm going to call as my segment as my top 10 twigs, as my rookies that may surprise this year. A lot of them are later picks. I didn't go with the obvious choices. I think I do have 2 first-round draft picks on there, so they're on the more obvious side. But as we go down the list, it's further into the draft. Not only do we have that, college football started last week with a very, very fun kickoff game. I only watched the kickoff game of week 0, I'll be honest. I didn't watch the other 3 games that night, but I did watch that Kansas State-Iowa State game. That was so much fun to watch. So, yeah, I mean, that's what happened over the past week. It was a fun week. Football is in full swing, with obviously, like I just said, week 0 college football, this week being NFL's Hell Week, as everyone gets their alerts over and over and over again about the NFL free agents, who's getting cut as the 53-man rosters come out. And like I said, not only that, we have so much upcoming for the NFL season, and I cannot wait. But as I said before, I'm starting the show off with baseball because baseball has me in a mood, and that mood is not a good one because the New York Yankees sat out there on the most important series of the year. You had the division in your hands. You had the wild card in your hands. You have so much in your hands here going into this Boston series as the New York Yankees, and not only do you fall flat, you play arguably the worst baseball I have seen them play all year. The way that the New York Yankees played last week was an absolute embarrassment, and it was such a bad embarrassment that when they won the 4th game, I was honestly upset about the fact that they won the 4th game. I wanted them to get swept. I wanted them to get embarrassed so that they are forced to make changes in that locker room, whether it's with Boone, whether it's with the message sent, whatever it is. This Yankees team is too persistent. They care too much about being right and too much about just they're okay with being just good. This team has no desire to be great, and it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. When you go through that Boston series, when you look at the 2nd inning of the 1st game alone with those 3 errors, and you have the throw by Jazz and all of that, and it's just disgusting. And then in game 2, actually going back to game 1, then you put in Yuri De Los Santos, who is absolutely terrible. He's been terrible all year. He hasn't performed well all year. You put him late in that game when it's still somewhat of a close game and let Roman Anthony absolutely bomb that baseball 450 feet. I don't know how far that home run actually went, but he absolutely bombed that baseball, right? And then you go into game 2, and you have a great opportunity. Yeah, you're not hitting well in game 2, but it's a pitching duel with a dude who hasn't been playing well, actually, and he's finally looking back to form as he has before the All-Star game. And what does Aaron Boone do? Tell me, what does Aaron Boone do? He takes him out. He takes him out because the stats told him to. He takes him out because the stats told him to? Because the analytics tell you that he's going to hit over 100 pitches. And he's going to see the lineup for a 4th time or a 3rd time. And you can't let that happen. No! Fried clearly had at least 1 more inning in him. And what happens when you take Fried out? What happened? Oh, Mark Leiter. Oh, what does he do? Oh, he gives up a double. Oh, what does he do? He gives up back-to-back doubles. Back-to-back doubles. Back-to-back doubles, they score, and it's a 1-0 game. That's it. Game over. Because they were pitching just as well as we were. The third game I don't even want to talk about. Third game, you seem like you have an opportunity. Yeah, you use some pitchers at this point. I get it. You're late in your rotation. Some dudes are tired. You're putting Paul Blackburn. He looks like he's never pitched an MLB game before, and he gives up 7 runs in the last inning. Yeah, you weren't really in that game. You know what I mean? You know, you're down 5-1 going into the ninth. Yeah. 7 runs? 7 runs? And then cool, game 4, you go out there. Grisham Jazz have 2 home runs. Rodon looked well. Weaver scared me. After Rodon left 2-1, they took him out. But what's going on with this team is absolutely ridiculous, and I can't get over it. Okay, cool. You won last night too. You beat Washington. You beat St. Louis in August. You beat Minnesota in August. I was so happy about August. Yeah, they weren't great teams, but you laid the schedule out so from when you played the good teams, you didn't have to even play great. You just had to play good. You just had to not go out there and fall flat and look like an absolute embarrassment of a team that yeah, you could hit the home run. Good job. You lead the league in home runs. Good job. You're up there in the league in runs scored this year. Good job. You look like a team that is inept when it comes to the fundamentals of baseball alone. Cool. You could slap hit it over the shortest right field fence in baseball. Good job. Good job, Jazz. But what you can't do is turn 2 because you're throwing the ball 90 feet over Paul's head, over Paul Goldschmidt's head. Volpe isn't even hitting the slap home run. I don't know what's going on. Once we get into the rotation, it's absolutely atrocious. I guess something happened to Luke Weaver's head once we brought in other closers. Because once we brought in these other closers, Luke Weaver's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse as this season's gone on. The Bednar thing doesn't look terrible. That doesn't look terrible. Camilo Doval looks terrible. You already sent Jake Bird down. So you made your moves and they failed. And don't get me wrong, does this team have the pieces to go on a run? 110%. You have Judge getting back healthy, and he's only playing better and better as he feels better. You have Cody Bellinger, who, hasn't been hitting great recently, but he's having an exceptional season. As Giancarlo gets back into the season, he's getting better and better and better and better. Grisham has surprised everyone this year. Do you have the pieces to go on the run? Offensively, Ben Rice has been great. Like you have the pieces there. Fried. You know what? You have Luis Gil, but he didn't look great in this series. He didn't look great against Boston at all. And you're sitting in a situation now where now, late August, early September, you not only, obviously you needed to win these games, but now it's like no choice. If you come out flat against Toronto in that first week of September and then have to go straight back up to Boston, we might fall out of the wild card. I don't even feel like it's just such a situation of just like it feels like 2016. It does. And we saw it clearly, obviously, in Game 5 of the World Series last year. We saw it in the World Series last year where they looked, like I just said, they looked inept. They look like they don't know how to play fundamental baseball. And it's just been the same thing over and over and over and over and over with the New York Yankees ever since the World Series. It's absolutely, absolutely ridiculous that you are sitting here. You are at 1.8 games going into the All-Star break, right before the All-Star break, actually, or it was right after when you played Toronto's when you lost that series and you lost the lead. During the All-Star break, you were, you know what I mean? Before the All-Star break, we were 5 games up. There was a point where we were 8 games up. We were doing great. And I don't know what's happened. And there's no message going on in the locker room. There seems to be absolutely no urgency to fix what is going on. I don't see a lick of urgency. I really don't. When Boone got mad in the press conference the other day, it looked fake. It looked fake. Like, I don't know what to say about this team anymore. They're so lost. And they're so, like, I almost don't want to watch them anymore when they go on TV. It's just so aggravating. And I want to say, yeah, fire Boone. Obviously, that's the easy answer. But do I trust that Cashman's not going to hire Aaron Boone Jr.? No, I don't. I feel like the Yankees care so much about being right that they'll hire the same guy over and over and over again. And you know, if we have a backdoor agreement before Boone is fired that, yeah, maybe, because I've heard the rumors that it's going to be Posada or one of these old Yankees, then, yeah, maybe I'll trust it. Because do I think Posada's putting up with any of this bull crap? No. I don't think Posada's putting up with any of this. I don't think any of those older Yankees that bleed Yankee, that their whole being is the Yankees, would put up with any of what's going on. So if that's what we have on the back door, yeah, I like it. Maybe. But if it's just going to be Boone too, I don't see the point. I don't see the point in any sense of the form. Because Boone's gotten us places. I won't lie there. If I want to play devil's advocate and look at the other side, Boone's won us games. I mean, we were in the World Series a year ago. We were right there. Now, did we stand a chance against the Dodgers? Clearly, no. Clearly, we didn't stand a chance going into that series one lick. And we got our as people on WFAN use this analogy, we got our lunch handed to us. Because we got bullied, and we did. That's what happened. And it's just what happened in Boston. It's what Boston's been doing all year. We're 2-8 against Boston this year. And it's just been over and over and over again that it's an absolute... It's the way they lose is embarrassing. It's not normal losses. It's beating yourself. It's just shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again with all these errors and using the analytics instead of feeling the game when it's Boone. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's the truth. The Boone, everything that's going on, if there's one man's fingerprints on everything that has to take the first blame, it's Aaron Boone. So I think, you know, right now as the Yankees, as the front office of the Yankees, you have to be looking elsewhere. You have to be looking at what else is going on. And it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. You got lucky right now. They are only a half a game back because Boston somehow lost to the O's yesterday. You have that situation where it seems outside of playing the Yankees recently, Boston is not playing well. So you have a chance there. You're still 5.5 games back at Toronto. That's the crazy part about the Yankees, is this is so embarrassing, and it is still, even after you just embarrassed yourself about Boston, it's still right in front of you if you really wanted to. If you really, really could. But I have no trust that they'll take it. I have no trust that they'll take it. I think they'll look terrible against Toronto. I think they'll look terrible against all the good teams they play for the rest of the season like they have all year. And it's I don't know where you go from here. We only have so much left with Aaron Judge. This window's only so much. It's only so much longer that we have this window. You know, Cody's gonna be a free agent this year. We only have so much. We really do. You got to take advantage now. I don't know what it takes, and I don't believe that they'll do it. I don't know if Aaron Boone's the dude to do it, but you got to do it now. It's now. You maybe have, I don't know what, 3-4 more years if we're being absolutely realistic before you got to hit at least somewhat of a reset button and find young players again to try to keep this window open. So, I don't know, man. There's only so much you could do. There's really only so much you could do. I'm going to move on to football, though. I am. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to football. We're going to talk a little college football first. A little college football first. You know, everyone loves some college football. College football is exciting. College football. Week 1 is this week with college football, and there's the slate of week 1 of college football is absolutely insane. I'm not going to lie. Like, obviously everyone knows there's OSU Texas. Like that's a big noon kickoff. But you got some games that could really be surprising. Like, yeah, Florida State fell flat last year, but you have them playing Alabama. Okay, that could be interesting. Tennessee Syracuse could be definitely interesting the way Syracuse went on a run last year. Clemson LSU as the night game on Saturday. You got some really good games. You got Notre Dame, Florida. You got some really good games this week for week 1 of college football, and I can't wait. Obviously, it starts with Texas, Ohio State. That one's going to be fun. College football did kick off last week in Ireland, in Dublin. In Dublin, Ireland. Over that in Dublin. It was a fun game, man. If any of you watched it, I hope you guys did. If you missed it, like, it started off so fun. It started off so sloppy because of the weather and everything, but it was one of those moments where you just, like, you know, when you see sloppy basketball and you see, like, these teams go on runs in college basketball at the beginning of that season, and you see all that stuff in those big matchups that they put early in the season, it's so much fun to watch. You saw it in that game where early in the game, you had the muff punt right into the turnover of Iowa State. Iowa State played very well, coming off a Big 12 championship that a lot of people forget about. You know, they just won that Big 12 championship with Scatterbo. They snuck into the playoff. They played well against Boise State and you know, arguably outplayed the Heisman winner and Ashton Genty with Scatterbo last year. Iowa State's a team that could surprise a lot of people this year. They squeezed out that win against Kansas State up there in Dublin. Their quarterback played very well. Rico Becht, I believe his name was. He played very well. So did Avery Johnson. We're not going to talk about, if anybody saw the news, we're not going to talk about Rico Johnson's dad. That wasn't a good look. That was not a good look for the Kansas State quarterback. But you know, Iowa State looked really good. I'm not gonna lie. They ran the ball like they always will, like Iowa teams always will, very well. Rico Becht was able to get out of the pocket a lot. He has 3 total touchdowns, 2 through the air. It was just fun to see that football's back. College football is gonna be fun this year. I know, Vin, you're in the chat. You said you want to get into it. Obviously, college football, man, is just it's so great. It's gonna be so much fun this weekend with. Obviously, sadly, I'll be at work for the Texas OSU game, but the minute I'm out of work I can't wait for that night slate. That night slate is going to be so entertaining as well to wake up to on Sunday of one Sunday off before we get to NFL football, with the kickoff being next Thursday between the Cowboys and the Chiefs. But you know, you got a lot of storylines going into college football this year with Archie Manning, with Ohio State coming off a national championship, losing a lot of players. You have Georgia. Can they bounce back? Is Texas, like I said, with Archie Manning, as good as everyone feels that with their coming in as the number one team in the country. You have LSU, who looks really good this year. You got a lot of these schools that really are hoping to click. We could see what Coach Sanders in Colorado could do without Shador, without Travis Hunter, who he has had through his whole college coaching career, had them over at Jackson State. So the storylines throughout college football this year are so exciting. Bill Belichick in North Carolina, they kick off against, I'm going to try to find it. I didn't have it written down. That's a good question. North Carolina's kickoff game. Who does Bill Belichick kick off against? He kicks off against TCU on Monday night. So you got a lot. You got a lot for college football this week. So much exciting stuff coming up in college football this week. And Bill Belichick and UNC is going to be interesting, man. That is going to be fun. To see what Bill Belichick is going to do down there, you know what I mean? And a lot of, so much story is going to come out of Bill Belichick at UNC because, obviously that brings so many recruits from the generations who watch those Patriots team. But, also on that same note of everyone talking about those Patriots teams and all of that, if Bill Belichick comes out in college football and falls flat for 2 years and leaves UNC because it didn't work out or something like that, the stories of was it all Brady, was it really Bill because Brady left and won championships is going to be so interesting to see what they do. And with the media, how us and the media can twist that story is going to be so fun to see that, realistically, this is Bill's first time moving on from New England. We gave him an excuse in New England with the team that he was left with after Tom Brady left. To see what maybe could happen if he falls flat in UNC could be so much fun. That'll be such an interesting story to watch all year. So, yeah, I'm so happy college football kicked off. Speaking of football, I know everyone's fantasy starting. NFL fantasy. Shout out my boy Sean. I don't know, he might not be in the chat right now. He's probably at work. But my man over there got us some cards. We got a PSA 8 B-Rob over here that he gave my brother, Brennan Cook's auto. So those are new additions to the set over there. Nice Derrick Henry uniform card. Not a big card collector, but damn, some cards are cool. These are pretty cool. There was an Archie Manning number card I got. That was all part of the fantasy draft that we did. So shout out there. I can't wait for my fantasy team this year. I got another draft coming up on Friday. Fantasy is going to be fun this year, bro. Fantasy is going to be fun. Woo. I can't wait, bro. Week 1 of the NFL coming up. So much of the NFL coming up. My fantasy draft is really good this year, guys. I'm looking over there at the board. That's why if you guys keep seeing me looking off screen over there, that's what I keep looking at. I keep looking over at the fantasy board. I'm so hyped for that team this year. I think there's some steals we got late. I think there's some rookies we got. I love Matthew Golden in fantasy this year. That's a pick we got in there that I love that we got. Got Kelsey in the 6th round, which is around his ADP. I love that. I got a lot of people late, so. And I can't wait to see how this draft goes on Friday because that's a personal league for me that we finally expanded. So I can't wait to see how that draft goes on Friday or Saturday whenever we get that scheduled. But fantasy's going to be interesting this year. A lot of people like Bijan high. We went Bijan at 2 over in this draft over here. But, a lot of people like Bijan high. A lot of people love Jamar Chase. Saquon, is he going to get hit by the Madden curse? Fantasy's interesting. I'm not great at fantasy. I definitely am trying to get more into it this year. Maybe add it into the show a little more this year. Same thing with gambling. I might throw some bets in this year at the end of the show as we get into football season. And yeah, man, it's fun. That's going to be fun. Going into the NFL, I didn't have much on the NFL this week. Obviously, with the preseason, there's not much to talk about. There's some cuts happening as we talk. The Browns cut Deontay Johnson. That's probably the biggest one that has happened over the weekend. Tommy DeVito was a big name that got cut over here in New York. A big fan favorite of Tommy Cutlets, if you guys remember that run. He was waived this week. He did not make the 53-man roster. Neither did Hendon Hooker, 3rd-round pick from a few years ago, the old Tennessee quarterback who I love. So those are some names where you'll definitely see them probably get a spot somewhere on a roster. McCole Hardman got cut by the Green Bay Packers. He'll probably find a spot somewhere, more likely than not in Kansas City, because they like him over there and it works in that offense. So it's interesting to see really what's going to go on there. Obviously, as the night comes, we get more and more cuts. I believe the deadline is either tonight or tomorrow. I can't remember what the exact day is. So you'll see all these names. You'll see some bigger names get cut for salary reasons, like a Deontay Johnson. It's known as Hell Week. It's obviously not fun to celebrate people losing their jobs. It happens in the offseason too, right as the regular season ends, when you see all of the head coaches get purged right there. It's not fun to celebrate people losing their jobs, but it's always interesting to see the moves that these teams make to make room for contracts, to maybe feel like, oh, this dude's over the hump and we're paying him a lot of money, but we got his guarantees out of the way. Let's get that last half of the contract off the books. You've seen some big names get cut as this 52-man roster cut happens. So no crazy names this year so far, but it's definitely interesting to see if any will come as the night progresses. Definitely. Some other big news in the NFL. Trey Hendrickson gets his money. That's a big thing for Cincinnati for them to happen. They got the Shamar Stewart thing done. They got the Trey Hendrickson thing done. That's big for a team that obviously I think everybody knows that defense struggled immensely last year. And they at least get it that what people were calling a hold in. They get that done with Trey Hendrickson, get the sack leader back on the team, a very big piece of that defense, obviously a defense that struggled immensely. Now, was only a one-year deal. He gets a huge pay raise for this year. It's worth up to $30 million, but he's still set to become that free agent in 2026. So I guess what it kind of was, hey, Trey, we're going to prolong these contract discussions until the middle of the year. Let's just get you back on the field. Let's just get everything that we need to get done now. Get you back on the field, get you back as a leader for this defense that really needs to improve. With Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, who a lot of people like this year, T. Higgins, and, obviously an O-line that, yes, struggled last year as well, but I can't see how Trey Hendrickson was going to be let go. You couldn't have done that if you're Cincinnati. There was no way, in any way, shape, or form as Cincinnati, that you were going to give up Trey Hendrickson and let Trey Hendrickson walk. That would have been absolutely insane. I think maybe they had some things that they were worried about. Maybe they wanted to focus on the whole Shamar Stewart thing first, and then these discussions really got underway, because I do remember that being a huge part in this that Trey Hendrickson kept saying was they haven't even reached out yet. So maybe he wasn't high on the priority list, but they finally get that deal done, which is huge for them to get done, for that defense, for Cincinnati to be even close to successful defensively this year. You had to have had Trey Hendrickson on the roster. There was no other option for Cincinnati this year other than having Trey Hendrickson on that roster if you want to succeed. Unless you were going to get some big package for him, which you weren't going to get because he had to be paid. You weren't going to get this giant package for Trey Hendrickson. I really don't know if you were. You wanted to. That's probably what they were asking for, and it wasn't there. It wasn't going to be there. Obviously, I think everyone else knows the biggest contract that came out recently, right after Trey gets his money, Scary Terry gets his money. So that hold-in over there in Washington is also over, as Scary Terry gets his 3-year deal that could be worth up to $96 million there in Washington. Jaden Daniels gets his number one receiver back, which is huge for that offense, because I'm not going to lie, I felt like they would have been in a big hole, in a huge struggle if they sat there with Deebo Samuel as your number one receiver and Marvin Mims Jr. as your number 2, more likely than not. It's not a situation that I would have loved, especially if my name is Jaden Daniels. I would have been sitting there going to that GM's office every day being like, y'all pay Terry yet? Y'all pay Terry yet? Y'all pay Terry yet? Y'all pay Terry yet? I'd be saying that every day. I would be there every day if I was Jaden Daniels. And hopefully he was, because Terry got his money. I thought Terry was going to get a lot more money. They definitely settled because he wanted to be on the field, and it seems like he wanted to be in Washington as much as he did, request a trade. You see different trade situations a lot. And I feel like when you look at certain trade situations, when player requests a trade, you see, and I'll use two in the same division as my example here, one that just got resolved and one that hasn't been resolved. On one hand, you have Terry McLaurin, who, yes, requests a trade. Yes, Terry McLaurin comes out. He requests this trade a few months ago because his contract is not what the contract just negotiations are not going where they want to go. But post that trade request, Terry was no longer in the media talking heavy, talking bad about Washington, talking about how much he wanted to leave, doing these things in public that he know would get eye. If you now look at a situation like Micah in Dallas, that situation is clearly getting worse and worse by the day. Now, I don't know if it's the way that Jerry's using the media as well that's making Micah go extra with it, but like when you look at the Micah Parsons situation, you have him looking like he's asleep on the training table the other day during that preseason game, even though he was only there for 3 minutes of the third quarter. You have him taking the Dallas Cowboys out of his Instagram bio and changing it to TBD. You have him walking in with a bunch of fried food the other day and someone saying, go to Atlanta, and he does the phone call, like the call. Micah knows he's getting eyes. All these players know when they do this, they're going to get eyes. Micah doesn't seem like he wants to be in Dallas anymore. It really doesn't seem like that. As much at first as I thought it might be him using the media, and it could be him using the media on a heavier standpoint because Jerry's going to use the media on a heavier standpoint than Washington's going to in that Terry McLaurin situation. But I don't know. It really doesn't seem like, as the days goes on with the Micah Parsons situation, I don't see Micah wants to be there anymore. And with the Terry situation, it seemed like he wanted to be there. So they happily got that deal done and got his receiver back. Micah, I don't know what's going on over there. I can't wait to see what's going on over there. I think, Micah Parsons in a Green Bay Packer jersey will be absolutely nasty. Micah Parsons in a lot of these teams that need a pass rusher. You could go through a lot of these top teams that could really use a pass rusher and sell their soul for a player like Micah Parsons, especially some of those teams in the AFC that are trying to get over that Chiefs hump, that want to scare Patrick Mahomes. You got a lot over there that you can see that would be really interesting for that Micah Parsons situation that, if I'm Green Bay, if I'm Baltimore, if I'm Buffalo, I'm selling my soul for this guy. If I'm Philadelphia, after I just lost Josh Sweat, I know that's probably not going to happen, but, you find some really interesting situations that could happen for Micah Parsons. You really do when you look around. So who knows? Who knows? I'm running a little fast today. We might not get to an hour today. I didn't have a lot, NFL's just a little slow. I'm going to try to find a guest for next week. I do need another mic for the guest. That's why we haven't had one on that. Had one on yet, but I am trying to get a mic very, very soon. So hopefully by week 2, we'll have someone else on the show. By the way, guys, I just thought of that. I wanted to mention that before I get into it. But, this might be the last thing I've left today, and that is my log show, as I will call them, my top twigs of the year. Rookies that I think can make a huge impact on the league this year, make a huge impact for their teams this year. Majority of them, I will say, are second-round picks. I have a few later than that. I have 2 first-round picks on this top 10, but I went for players that a lot of players that a majority of football fans will know if you paid attention to college football and stuff like that, but you may have forgotten about, who have looked good in camp, who are these big names who played very well last year in college football, who aren't, these top 10 picks, but are definitely going to make an impact. I have them in order from the highest pick in the draft to the lowest pick in the draft. That is the order I chose to go for this. So, for my number 1, Logan, top twig of the year, the one that is the most expected to be on this list, that is not obviously one of those highly, highly, highly talked about rookies this year, but it's very a top talk about rookie this year, is Colts rookie tight end Tyler Warren from Penn State, who had an absolutely ridiculous year for Penn State last year, was their leading receiver, had 1,200 yards as a tight end, 8 touchdowns for Penn State. And, looking there at an offense for the Colts that your receivers are Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, the Alani, I'm forgetting his last name for some reason, but you have not the best receiving core, and you have Daniel Jones, who's, yeah, he likes to throw the ball deep, but Daniel Jones, if the coaches are going to do it right, are going to look at that 2018 Giants film and know that Daniel Jones survives on checkdowns. That was a year where Evan Ingram played very well for the New York Giants, had a lot of touchdowns for the New York Giants. And I think in the situation of Tyler Warren, it wouldn't surprise me or many other people if he is this year's Brock Bowers. He might not lead the league in receiving yards, but I think he could be a very, very big impact player. I think he's probably the top target for Daniel Jones in that offense over there in Indianapolis. And like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he's, top 5 fantasy player this year, top tight end in the league, or top fantasy tight end. And establishes himself like a Brock Bowers did. I wouldn't be surprised about that. So my first twig, a twig that I'm not going to talk a lot about because a lot of deep football player, a lot of people who watched the draft and did a little draft coverage know about him. I remember I told Vin, you're still, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but I told him when we went to the Jets draft party, someone who I thought the Jets should have drafted, but they went with a second round tight end instead. But I think he might have been the best tight end in the draft. He might end up being one of the best players in the draft period. So he is one of my one of my easier twigs, but my number 1 log show twig of the year. Number 2 on my log show twig of the years is another player who was a first round pick, another player who is very high on my draft board, very high on many players' fantasy draft boards, and that is Chargers rookie running back Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, someone who I thought, obviously, yes, you have Gentry, you have Scatabo, you had a lot of running backs in this draft who honestly did have a lot of talent. But I'm not going to lie. I said it multiple times on my show going into the draft that I felt Omarion Hampton might be the best running back in the draft. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up slightly better than Gentry, especially in the offense that the Chargers have, that Najee Harris who played exceptionally well in last year and surprised a lot of people. You had J.K. Dobbins before he tears ACL play very well in that Chargers offense as well. It's a Chargers offense that is a very good O-line led by second-year player Joe Alt. I don't see a situation where Omarion Hampton does anything but succeed in that offense over there. I think it's just a perfect situation for him. He's a dude who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year at UNC in his final year there. He also had a few receiving yards. He had 15 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons at UNC. He was one of the best running backs in the country year after year. So not a surprise that the Chargers went for him in the first round, and a very, very, very good pick who makes my second log show twig of the year. My third log show twig of the year is somebody who also was a first-round pick, who is very well known, but for some reason I feel like has been forgotten about, and the place that he landed was perfect for him, and that is former Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell, who is now in Philadelphia, who I don't know if they're going to have him play middle linebacker or that outside linebacker edge rush, but to partner him with Zach Bond and other players on that defense there in Philly, a defense that was absolutely amazing last year, to now draft someone late in the first round, get someone who a lot of people thought could have been a top 15 pick, get someone who was a top 20 in the country in tackles last year at Bama, one of the best defensive players in the country, one of the best linebackers in the country by far. To put him in Philadelphia is going to be very fun to see. I think it's a perfect fit. 117 tackles. Like I said, that was 17th in the country last year for Alabama. And I think it's a great pick. Now, we move on to number 4. And as we move on to 4, these names may be known by most of you because we're getting into the second round here. But they're deeper names. They're not first-round picks. It's not someone who was 17th in the country in tackles. It's not someone who was a first-round pick. It's not Omarion Hampton, who people said was the best running back in the draft. It's not Tyler Warren, who people expected to go top 10. The first one is Iowa State receiver Jaden Higgins, who went to Houston. I think Jaden Higgins is a very, very good wide receiver. The comparison that a lot of people have made, and it seems to just glare off the screen when you see the way that the Texans use him in the offense in the preseason, was Nico Collins. And in an offense that now has Tank Dell out for the year, Nico Collins, who's coming off an injury, to get someone like Jaden Higgins in the second round who had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns last year in the Big 12 on a team that won the Big 12, who ran the ball a lot as well with Cam Scatterbo last year in that offense, it's a very good option to add for CJ Stroud in that offense. And I think it's someone who honestly could surprise that, like, when you look at a team like the Texans, that year after year that they've done an exceptionally great job scouting these wide receivers, an exceptionally great job, finding guys like Nico Collins, like Tank Dell, like these guys just time and time again that they get in the second and third round in these drafts that are absolute studs. And I think the next person on that list is going to be Jaden Higgins. I think he's going to fit into this offense very well. He's going to slide into that spot, probably that Tank Dell is going to be that they're missing with Tank Dell out of the offense. So that is my 4th log show twig of the year. Watch out for Jaden Higgins down there in the AFC South, man. Trust me, watch out for him. I think he could look like if I'm gonna do a rookie comparison to him last year, I'd say like Brian Thomas Jr. I mean in the sense of, I don't know if we're gonna get this production off rip for Jaden Higgins, but by the end of the year, I think he'll end the year with 850 yards and really blow up by week 4 to 6 and later in the season. The next name we have is someone who I have had on my top preseason rookies every week that I've done this show so far. Someone who has played absolutely great, someone who I loved in college. Again, another running back who I thought was a top running back in this draft, and that is former Ohio State running back Trayvon Henderson, who had over 1,000 yards last year, had 7.1 yards per carry last year at OSU in a two running back system that he had down there with the other star running back, other second-round pick, Quinshawn Junkins, who went to Cleveland. But with Trayvon Henderson, the way that he has looked, this preseason was absolutely insane. The first time the kid touched the ball, he went 99 yards for a kick return. He has looked like an absolute stud in a Vrabel offense that really Drake May doesn't have that many ridiculous weapons. He has some okay weapons. I think all of them are at most okay because, you know what I mean? Maybe Stephon Diggs gets back to form, but I really don't know about all of that. So I really see New England running the ball a lot this year. And, yeah, maybe they start the year with Trayvon on the bench, but I don't know. He could take that starting spot very early. I think it's a similar situation to a lot of what we see with these second-round running backs where you don't expect them to take the spot, but they do very early because they're very, 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 very good. Very good. At number 6, I have defensive back from Arizona, Will Johnson. Or who is in Arizona now. He went to Michigan. I apologize for that, for the confusion. The way I said that there, the way I read my notes was off. But former Michigan defensive back, cornerback Will Johnson, who went Pick 47 to Arizona. I thought when the Saints drafted Tyler Shook that if they were going to go quarterback, I wanted it at the time to be Milroe or Will Johnson, who was still available at the board. Someone who at the beginning of the season was arguably the best defensive back in the country outside of maybe Travis Hunter. And then sadly just got injured. Got that turf toe that kept him out of the end of last year, and that obviously scares people when you lose so much time at the end of the year. But he's such an exceptional cornerback, such a lockdown cornerback. 2 interceptions in his 6 games last year, and then had 4 interceptions a year before, 12 tackles in those 6 games last year. Looked very good in Michigan. And like I said, the year before was the top DB in the country. So, Arizona, a place that has had Patrick Peterson, a place that has had a history of drafting good safeties and defensive backs, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, Budda Baker, and now hoping to add to the list, and I think they Will Johnson, who is someone who is absolutely insanely good. Don't get me, so good to fit down there in that Arizona defense that really needs help in the secondary. Budda Baker needs help back there. And hopefully they found their lockup corner, and I think they might have, in Will Johnson as my 6th twig of the year. My 7th twig of the year will be wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Trey Harris, who went to the Los Angeles Chargers. He is someone who it's a very interesting situation with Trey Harris, the way he's looked in camp this year. Now, he only played 8 games last year after getting a groin issue in 2024, but already had over 1,000 yards in those 8 games with 4 games left to play. He just ended up missing those last 4 games of the season last year. But Trey Harris is someone that, the problem is, and it's a big problem, is he's not focusing enough, and he's dropping a lot of passes in camp, and that's scary. But if someone like Jim Harbaugh, who I believe he can get him in camp to just sit there and be on the jugs machine over and over and over again, and take all this extra time and get those hands ready for the season. He's a player that can make a big impact in a Chargers offense that, yes, you have Ladd McConkey. Yes, you have an aging Keenan Allen, but he could play better than Keenan Allen, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did. Trey Harris is he went 55. He's a very good college player that's coming off an injury. The injury is still lingering, but listen for that name, especially in the Chargers offense that has had a lot of young receivers in that spot play well. They had Ladd do it last year. Hopefully they're having Trey Harris do it this year in 2025. My 8th log show twig of the year. Now, this one, he snuck onto the list. I don't got stats for him, sadly, because O-linemen are hard to find stats for. Yes, I did it. I said it. It's an O-lineman. But it's a man, when looking it up, was getting a lot of praises in the Chicago media. Apparently getting a lot of reps with the first team. And it's a very important position with a very young quarterback. And that is 2nd-round pick out of Boston College, Ozzie Trapilo. Now, Ozzie Trapilo was a top lineman in the draft, not obviously a Kelvin Banks type, but Chicago felt that they wanted to go Cade Otton. They wanted to go early with that tight end from, why am I blanking on the tight end's name now? The Notre Dame tight end. I'm blanking on his name for some reason. But they go tight end early at 10. So they move on in the 2nd round and do what they should do, and that's protect Caleb Williams with someone who is very, very good. Someone, like I said, who has been getting praises throughout the Chicago media that he's been playing absolutely well in camp. Sadly, like I said, it was hard for me to find really like pressure rates and stuff like that for last year for Boston College. But nonetheless, like I said, everything I've read about the man has been nothing but praises, and he's playing left tackle, a position that's absolutely important in this Ben Johnson offense. To have Caleb Williams have success, he needs to be protected, and that's what they got him, is protection. And they got him someone who I think could be maybe the best lineman in the draft in Mr. Ozzie Trapilo. Now, 9 and 10 are very late picks. One of them is undrafted. I will go at 9, but I think this guy at 9 has an opportunity right in front of him that he hasn't had in a very long time, that not a lot of rookies have, even not a lot of these first round draft picks have. And that is the opportunity that fifth round draft pick Jaden Blue out of Texas has down there in Dallas as a running back drafted into that Dallas offense. When you look at the depth chart of the Dallas Cowboys, it's a wide open position, the running back position. It's absolutely wide open. Obviously, as of the moment, you have Javonte Williams, who came over there from Dallas. But besides that, you have Miles Sanders and Jaden Blue. That's all you have. So to see where they go with this like what could happen, it's a wide open position battle. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, right now it's Javonte Williams, but Jaden Blue has shown flashes not only in camp, showed them at Texas last year. He's a very good player out of the backfield, had 6 receiving touchdowns last year, had 730 yards, didn't get 1,000 yards on a Texas offense that did not run the ball a whole lot, if I'm going to be honest. But he was a big part of that Texas team, someone who, like I said, a lot of people out of Dallas are saying that they expect him, that he could be the starter by the middle of the season. At some point this year, he could definitely take that top spot. And it's a position that Dallas has needed an explosive player in for a while. And if coached correctly, if done correctly, Jaden Blue could be that player. He could be that Ezekiel Elliott part 2 that you get down there in Dallas. That could be the big steal of the draft in these later rounds that Jerry Jones found. And last but not least, for my last log show twig, my biggest sleeper out of all rookies is Rams undrafted free agent Sean Dulac out of Buffalo. And you may ask, Logan, what makes you say that? What makes you say an undrafted free agent makes this top 10 of the twigs of the year? Someone who I honestly think, after watching film, is going to be very, very good. Very good. This is a man who last year led all of the NCAA in tackles. And I couldn't find much Buffalo film because people on the internet aren't posting Buffalo film a whole lot. I have to go back and find it. But I did find his preseason film, and in his preseason film, he looks like an elite linebacker already. The way that he stays home, he looks such like a mentally ready player, a football player, that if that's all you have and you just need to put in the work to get your physical sets there, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. Absolute stud. Like I said, led all of the NCAA in tackles last year. He's in a Rams defense that, realistically, that middle linebacker position isn't all locked home. I wouldn't sit here and say that. Would you sit here and tell me that the Los Angeles Rams linebacker position, where as I pull it up, we're looking at Byron Young, Nate Landman, Omar Spites, and Jared Verse, isn't wide open? Now, yes, looking at this depth chart, it's the official one. Dulac is 4th on it, which has happened. You know, it's a preseason. It's a preseason at the end of the day. But man, does that kid have a lot of potential. So watch out for that name, and that's what I will say. That's the one I want to pull. That's the clip I'm going to pull in 3 years when he's the next Luke Kuechly. Watch out for Sean Dulac. I am telling you, that kid will be a stud in the NFL. That's all I got for you guys today, sadly. I know I ran right to that. It's like, well, he's done? What? You knew that right after that? Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't really have much. NFL news I thought was going to be a lot bigger over these past 2 days with the releases, and it just wasn't. I've also just been working a whole lot, so I didn't get to read a whole lot this week about just random rumors and news that I love to talk about. I did get to watch and listen to the Yankees and them disappoint me. You know, I did, watch and listen about Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin and all that. You know, I watched the college football. I got in what I got in, but not a lot going on. This is a dead week until next week when we have the NFL coming up, and I finally get to do a week full of predictions that I love to do. I get to make my picks for a full NFL slate at the end of the show, and I can't wait for it. But that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you everybody for tuning into the Log Show today. Please everyone subscribe here on YouTube to the Log Show if you guys are watching later. Please come in next Tuesday to watch the live shows. I'm live every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. or 3 p.m.-ish, depending on what I'm talking about that day. Not only that, I am right now talking, hopefully, I use Streamlabs to set my stream up. I don't know if you guys know about that, but I'm talking to them to try to settle the problems I've been having to them. So hopefully we'll be coming to TikTok soon. The clips are going to be coming out on TikTok soon. So everybody follow me over there. But I will see everybody next week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Peace out.